Welcome to Downtown Sports. My name is Downtown Stephen Brown, and in today's video, guys, with just 11 games remaining before the start of the playoffs, there's a lot of stuff to discuss surrounding the Toronto Maple Leafs, so let's jump into it. The Maple Leafs went out and acquired 6 new players through this year's trade deadline, and ever since then, it's been sort of a mix and match game for head coach Sheldon Keefe, where he's putting out a different lineup almost every single game, trying to figure out where these guys fit best. And after the deadline was over, some people were asking the question, did the Maple Leafs do too much here? Are they going to have enough time to be able to integrate all these guys into the lineup and get the most out of them that they possibly can? Because looking over the advanced numbers at 5-on-5 for the Maple Leafs going back to when they first acquired Ryan O'Reilly, so 16 games ago, they're in the bottom half of the league in the majority of the advanced numbers. And anytime you're in the bottom half of the league in the majority of the numbers over a 16-game sample size, it's not good, no matter what the circumstances are. So I'm not going to try to spin this into something that actually is good. Like I said, I'm not going to try to spin this into something that is actually good, but I'm also not worried about it. The first reason I'm not too worried about it is because in those 16 games, they went 10-5-1. So they were finding ways to win, mostly on the backs of some good goaltending performances from Ilya Samsonov, Matt Murray, and even a couple of games from Joseph Woll thrown in there. Because if you compare that to what the goaltending situation was this time last season, we were debating whether or not the Maple Leafs trade deadline was a failure because they didn't go out and acquire Marc-Andre Fleury. Jack Campbell had an .884 save percentage in 9 games. Peter Mrazek played the bulk majority of the games between February and March, and Eric Källgren had the highest save percentage between all 3 of them at a .906. The second reason I'm not too worried is because Auston Matthews has been dealing with some sort of a mystery injury all season long. And last week it came out that it was some sort of a hand injury, but Matthews himself saying that he's turned the corner on that injury that has hampered him earlier in the year, and he feels good now and more like himself. Matthews also saying, I just felt like I wasn't able to do exactly what I wanted to at times, and from watching him play this year and fanning on so many dangerous scoring opportunities and just missing the net by that much, yeah, I think that's accurate. He's got 6 goals and 12 points in his last 8 games, and when he scored that second goal against the Florida Panthers the other night, when he came out from behind the net and just turned and sniped it, yeah, Auston Matthews is all the way back. But it's not just Auston Matthews. In that same 16-game sample from the middle of February until now, Mitch Marner's also 5th in the NHL in scoring with 27 points. Which is just a shade better than where he's been for the entire season, really. He's got 92 points. He's 7th in the NHL. He's on pace for 106 if he ends up playing all of the games. He's just been fantastic. I would even go as far as to say he's been their best player this year. So yeah, even though the overall numbers don't look the greatest in the llast month or so, they're 10-5-1. Auston Matthews and Mitch Marner are on fire, and the goaltending has been solid. The other stuff, I have faith it'll figure itself out. Something else I've wanted to discuss is whether or not I think the Maple Leafs are going to continue to go with 11 forwards and 7 defensemen as we get closer to the playoffs, if they're going to use that for their Game 1 lineup, or if they're going to go back to the traditional 12 and 6. The only real problem that I have with the Maple Leafs going with 11 forwards and 7 defensemen is that it's just yet another adjustment that this team has to make on top of trying to add 6 new guys into the fold. During their first Stanley Cup run, the Tampa Bay Lightning in the bubble playoffs went with 11 forwards and 7 defensemen for 11 straight games. And the main reason for that was that Ryan McDonagh early on in those playoffs suffered an injury, a defenseman that they relied upon to eat up a lot of important minutes. So rather than tasking just one guy to fill that void, they figured it would be beneficial to bring in an extra guy and spread those minutes out. But even after he returned, they continued to go with 7 defensemen because they wanted to ease him back into the lineup. And in the case of the Maple Leafs going with 11 forwards and 7 defensemen, it's just as much about protecting the guys that they rely upon the most to play the heavy defensive minutes as it is putting everyone in a position to succeed. It's just as much about lightening the load on TJ Brodie and Mark Giordano as it is cutting back on Morgan Rielly's minutes and using him in a role that just makes sense, right? Over the last couple of years, they've used Morgan Rielly in every situation possible, and we've been screaming for them to go out and get another defenseman or create another scenario where he doesn't have to play in all of those minutes, where you don't have to lean on him to do stuff that he's not necessarily the greatest at, and that's playing defense. You could use him in an offensive role and an offensive role only, and you could take advantage of the depth that you finally have. And trust me, I'm aware, you don't gotta tell me. Some of their best defensive efforts this season have come when Morgan Rielly has not been in the lineup. Like last game against the Florida Panthers, they held one of the most dangerous offenses to very few dangerous opportunities. What it all boils down to is, are the Maple Leafs a better offensive team with Morgan Rielly on the ice than when he's not on the ice? And when looking at the numbers, when looking at the quality and the quantity of the scoring opportunities, the Maple Leafs generate more with Morgan Rielly on the ice compared to when he's not. So is he doing his job? Yes, he's making an already very good offensive team that much better. And to put these numbers into context, Morgan Rielly has played the most amount of minutes per game up against the other team's best players in more of a neutral role so far this season. And the Maple Leafs are winning those minutes, 14 goals for, 11 goals against, and they're controlling the quantity and quality of the scoring opportunities. Morgan Rielly hasn't played a sheltered offensive role since maybe his first or second year in the league. To think that they're already a better team offensively with him playing those type of minutes compared to when he's not out there, I would expect them to be that much better with him out there on the ice playing against weaker matchups. Another benefit of going with 11 forwards and 7 defensemen is that it allows the Maple Leafs to shorten the bench a bit more and give some more minutes to a guy like William Nylander, who's only played 18:32 a night so far this year, but has 81 points in 71 games, 36 goals, and is top 10 in the NHL in points per 60 minutes in all situations. If you can get him an extra couple of minutes every night, you're going to be better off for it. Especially when you consider that he leads the team in both goals and points over the last 3 playoff runs. Sticking with Nylander here, though, after going pointless in 3 straight games earlier on in the week, Sheldon Keefe actually called him out in the media, saying that there's a lot more perimeter play and a lot more getting rid of the puck in his game, and saying that he wants to see him hang on to it more and play with some more pace. And I found the reaction to this, which was mostly outraged, to be a bit funny, and if you were one of the people that were upset by it, here's why you shouldn't be. This is a quote from November of 2021. Keefe on Nylander: "I've talked to Will a number of times, and he's made it very clear to me that he's a guy that wants and needs to be pushed and challenged." That's just their working relationship. And, am I going to question the method to the madness? No, because in his most recent game against the Florida Panthers, he had a goal and an assist, and the goal came 2 feet out in front of the net. So if it works for them, it works for them. As for which 7 defensemen the Maple Leafs do run out there right now, because they do have 9 of them on their roster, I don't know. It's going to be whoever plays the best, whoever takes advantage of the ice time that they get between now and the end of the regular season. And with more depth comes more competition, and with the pressure dialed up a little bit, I know this isn't going to be a popular opinion, but if the playoffs started tomorrow, Timothy Liljegren is not in my Game 1 lineup. He's picked probably the worst time to play some of his worst hockey of the entire season. And again, to contextualize some of these numbers, this is with him playing some of the more softer minutes on the Toronto Blue Line since the trade deadline. He's got 2 weeks to pick it up. Can he do it? I don't know. I hope he does. And the last thing that I wanted to point out here is that after that game against the Buffalo Sabres, where the Leafs were up 2 goals and then they ended up blowing the lead, I know that was a while ago, but Jarnkrok dropped some bombs post-game, where he said in the second and the third period, we didn't get up to our level at all. Somebody asked him, why do you think that happened? I don't know. I got no idea. We stopped working out there. It's tough to win if you're not working. And if you're going to say stuff like that, you better be able to back it up. And over his next couple of games, he got an opportunity to play with Austin Matthews. 5 points, 3 games, scored 2 absolute rockets against the Ottawa Senators. And I know we're just talking about Calle Jarnkrok here, but at the same time, he set a career high in goals this year with 17, and over his next 11 games or so, he's got a chance to hit 20. And for $2.1 million, I know when they signed him, it was a 4-year deal. He's already 31, but if you can get a 20-goal guy for $2.1 million, I'm not really going to complain about that. It's been the case for him his entire career, and people were confused about it when he played for Calgary last year because they tried to play him as a center. He's not a center. And we said this way back when the Maple Leafs first signed him. He's a winger, and you got to play him with talented players. He's not going to drive the bus on his own line. He's a very good complementary player on a scoring line. And lo and behold, you play him with Austin Matthews or even John Tavares and William Nylander like he was earlier on in the season, and he produces. Like I said, I know it's just Calle Jarnkrok, but it's nice to see that fire and then the response. But that's going to be it for the video, guys. Make sure to like the video if you did like it and subscribe for more, because more is always on the way. And as well, make sure to let me know what your thoughts and opinions are of the Maple Leafs play as of late and what you think of the 11 forward, 7 defenseman lineup. What would your playoff lineup look like, and whatever else you're thinking about down there. So I'll catch you guys in the next one.